Professor Parks, PhD, and I do comment. I do content on astronomy, mental health, and science skepticism. And this is part of my Shouting into the Void series. Honestly, I'm not doing very well. Yesterday, I was basically bedridden, slept all day. And today, I'm attempting through this stream to not fucking do that. And just a language warning, I'm feeling rather salty today, so my language is probably going to be fucking fucked. So, anyway, yeah, I will start off with the title of this Shouting into the Void is, I will admit, is kind of clickbaity. Let me do this. I want to make sure my sound is good. All right, it's as good as it's ever going to get. All right, fantastic. It's a bit clickbaity because I'm going to talk about a whole lot of stuff, I think. Rant would be the better term, not talk. I'm going to rant about a number of things. And the shape of the Earth is probably going to be a very small portion of it. FYI. But I did want to start off with some astronomy news, as it were. Howdy, Judy Bassett. Thank you for being here. Let's see. What do I want to do here? I want to do that. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. Screw it. Like I said, I'm going to be all over the place. Just not doing well. So please forgive me if I am even more chaotic and all over the place than I normally am. Well, anyway, so I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to start off with some morning, Stephanie. I'm going to start off with a little bit of astronomy news, and that is yesterday, I believe, the morning of January 19th. What day is it today? Yep, that would be yesterday. The Japanese joined the Moon Club. They are the fifth nation to have successfully landed something on the moon's surface. Now, the others were or are the former Soviet Union. Suck it, Russians. Us, the U.S., United States, good old America, China, and most recently, India. Well, the Japanese have now successfully landed their most recent lander, whose acronym is SLIM, which stands for, let's see, what is it? I want to get this precisely. Smart Lander for Investigating Moon, which is the most Japanese backronym I could ever imagine, because it is poor grammar, shall we say. And I'm just curious why the Japanese decided to use an English acronym. I don't know. And why SLIM? Many, 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 many questions. The lander is primarily the thing that I've been reading most about. I don't know exactly what its primary goal is once it has landed. I think it's, as with many landers, simply a mapping mission, just to map out future sites for future landers. At least that's kind of my impression. But the main kind of achievement that it's trying to do, the first that it's trying to do, is that in typical landing fashion, most landers, if not all of them, usually have a typical accuracy of a few kilometers in how successfully they land on the point that the people who launched it wanted it to land. So you can think of the error bar of the landing to be a few kilometers in size. Whereas SLIM, it was meant to have a landing precision of, I think, a few hundred meters. Let me see if I can find this in this space.com. 100 meters. SLIM aimed to land within 330 feet, 100 meters of its target site at the rim of Scioli crater, explaining the probe's Moon Sniper nickname. So yeah, obviously when we start getting into the era, I think in a previous stream, I talked about the idea that we are now truly entering into the space age. It is no longer going to be just a Uh, every so often, we throw something at the moon and we all celebrate, and then kind of forget that it exists for a couple 10 years. You're going to be seeing stories like this all the time now. Countries are making it a primary focus to not only go to the moon, but continue to go to the moon, to actually develop programs on the lunar surface. Japan is certainly one of them. They have had their setbacks in terms of their space agency, which is known as JAXA. Their most recent drawback was they are trying to develop their own heavy rocket, and unfortunately, that has failed. Speaking of failures, while Slim has, which I am now going to call Slim Shady for now until eternity, Slim Shady managed to land softly, managed to actually get there, but it does have a technical difficulty, and that is it is primarily powered via solar. The issue was that the solar panels, while they deployed, apparently it deployed in the wrong direction. Howdy, Rachie and Dr. Wells. They deployed in the wrong direction, and so it is not getting renewable power. Not to worry, it is not dead. The satellite or the lander is not dead. It does have battery backup, but that means that without the solar panels, the lifetime of the mission is drastically reduced. And so I believe they are in the process of attempting to fix this, but from my understanding, they're going to have to essentially wait around until the sun kind of repositions itself. And for those of you who are familiar with the moon's orbital period, well, and also rotational period, is roughly 30 days. So it's going to take a while for them to figure out whether or not this could actually be useful. Apparently, Slim is carrying 2 tiny rovers, a little hopper named LEV-1, LEV-1, and a bell-shaped craft known as LEV-2. LEV is short for Lunar Exclusion Vehicle. And yeah, these are, again, they take pretty pictures, and it's basically meant for mapping. It's basically meant for survey work. It doesn't seem like there's anything more scientifically, there doesn't seem to be anything more scientifically rigorous going on here, other than, again, deploying technology and seeing whether or not they can see what they can see. And according to Jackson, the rovers, the LEVs, are going to be deployed on schedule. So I guess we'll wait and see whether or not those are successful in actually getting out of the spacecraft and wandering around. So I don't know what the bell-shaped craft known as LEV-2 is. Let's click the link, shall we? Let's see what that looks like. Doesn't really look like a bell to me. It crawls. All right, this is novel. Present. Wasn't planning on really sharing screen, but fuck it. All right, let's see here. Oops, wrong one. Whee! So yeah, that's LEV-2 in crawling mode. I don't know if I exactly call that bell-shaped. I'd more call it grenade-shaped, but perhaps that's kind of, morbid. A little sphere, not much larger than a tennis ball on the moon. It will pop out of the Slim lander and transform its 2 halves to traverse the regolith surface. That's so cute. Look at it. It's so cute. Oh, I love it. Is he going to collect dirt? Obviously, this is not a picture of LEV-2 on the moon. This is more than likely another LEV-2 on the Earth. And I would suspect that they built multiples of these little guys for testing, and then they sent out a new model to actually get on the moon. Pop off design. Slim Shady is, yeah, we know. LEV-2 will release from the lander at approximately 5 feet 11 inches above the lunar surface and begin rolling around to image Slim's landing and surrounding area. Okay. So it seems as if LEV-2 is going to actually demonstrate that the mission of sniping the moon actually happened. Because, as I mentioned before, the error bar of landing at this point from previous attempts has typically been about a kilometer or so, from my understanding. And Slim is trying to get that error bar down to 100 meters. So I suspect that's what Lev 2 is designed to do, is to go around and actually find the lander's position to high accuracy, or high accuracy, such that that claim, that hypotheses, can be tested. So, yeah, so that happened, which is cool. Ooh, there's a video. I won't play the video. Maybe at some point I will revisit this, particularly if we. It was just worked with toy manufacturer told me, oh, people are going to have a field day with this thing. I can almost hear the sweet, sweet dulcet tones of CE Montreal saying, do you believe in this? Do you believe that this is true? And then when I tell him yes, he will laugh at me. It's kind of our thing. It's our relationship at this point. So yeah, people are going to love the hell out of that, that it's effectively a toy. So anyway, all right. So yeah, all right. So so that's the astronomy portion, and I will get to the Earth as the shape of the Earth and all that kind of good stuff. The reason for it is that a recent subscriber, Lucky Hawkins, is it Hawkins or Haskins? I apologize for not getting that precisely right. I'll just say Lucky, because I know. Lucky is a science skeptic, flat earther who has been wanting to get in touch with me so that he can discuss what is science, essentially. And he most recently became a sub. Lucky Haskins, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. I knew it was one of the two, but so he became a recent subscriber, and he actually posted on one of my videos, asking, because I had heard through the grapevine, mainly Stephanie, that he had wanted to come onto my channel and have this sort of discussion. And now I think it's actually going to happen, because I now am communicating with him directly. Should be interesting. It should be interesting. He sent me a link to a video, he told me about a most recent video of his that I do intend on watching, but because, like I said, I was basically bedridden and sleeping all day yesterday, I haven't actually gotten to it. He has requested that I do a reaction video, or rather a response video, which would be a first for me, because I made it a point that my channel would not be response videos. I didn't really want to sort of dive into that arena, essentially the debunking arena, because there are people out there who do it far better than I can. They do it with much more panache and wit and production value than I do. Rachie, for example, does it far better than I do, although she does tend to stick to one subject and just flay the living shit out of them. Not that Flatsoy doesn't deserve it, but because, yeah, okay, no, I'm not. No. Peace and love. So yeah, I don't usually do response videos, but in this case, I think I might actually do that. Effectively, he has asked, and actually, let me not misrepresent Lucky in any way. So, which one is it? Okay, I think I responded to him, so let me see if I can pull it up. I think it was on the last Shouting into the Void. Why teach astronomy? Comments. No. Maybe not. All right. I can't seem to find it off the top of my head, so I'll just keep talking and maybe I'll find it. But from my understanding, one of the things that he specifically asked, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the question he asked was, do I think the shape of the earth is a fact? I think the way he phrased it is, do I believe the earth being a globe is a fact? Now, the reason why I'm really talking about this is because it actually touches on the topic of the scientific method. In the videos that I've done on the scientific method, the first thing that I have done is I have defined certain terms. Now, obviously, there is a lot of contention as to the word theory, particularly among science skeptics. The popular one I encounter most is the colloquial definition of theory. Like, I believe that I have a theory that Jewish space lasers caused the wildfires in California a couple of years ago. Well, problem with that is it only deals with a specific phenomenon, one particular thing, which a scientific theory does not. A scientific theory encompasses a large range of physical phenomenon. A law typically deals with a single phenomenon or a single behavior or physical behavior, like the law of gravity. The law of gravity simply talks about how two masses are attracted at when they are separated by a certain distance, and it has nothing else to say. So saying that Jewish space lasers burnt down California, again, that's a single event that would not be considered a theory. For that, at basic, it might be considered a law, but certainly it's not. So anyway, but some other definitions that I think might also be misconstrued or need to be stated are law. I define what a law is, and in my view, or the way I teach it, I could be very wrong. And if someone else has a better definition of this in the scientific standpoint, I would love to hear it. But for me, a law is something that, as said, describes quantitatively a single astrophysical or physical phenomenon or chemical phenomenon or what have you, scientific phenomenon. As stated, the classical universal law of gravitation simply talks about how two masses are attracted to each other given a set distance. And that's it. And usually, if not exclusively, it is expressed in mathematical form. But the one that I wanted to the one I wanted to touch on with relation to the shape of the earth is fact. What is a fact? I have frequently stated that science proves nothing, that science is provisional. Every theory that science has, including relativity, is provisional on new data. Right now, the data is telling us that relativity is the best explanation for the motion of objects general relativity is the motion of objects within gravitational fields. However, if we find observations that call that into question, we start to question it. Things like Mond pop up. And then if we find positions that are, shall we say, that are contrary to relativity, that relativity actually says one thing and we see another, then we know that relativity needs to be either corrected or done away with entirely. Right now, I would say, as I've said previously many, many times, that we are in an era where we are seeing, particularly astrophysically, we are seeing phenomenon that relativity has no answer for, or has maybe a very poor answer for. I wouldn't say that it has been contradicted. Now, what's most likely been called, or what has been called into serious question, particularly with JWST, is the cold dark matter model that we have, which explains the birth and evolution of the universe. But I digress. So science in that way is provisional. It never proves anything. However, science does contain facts. And what I define as a fact is something that is a measurement, that is a direct observational measurement. I am 6'2" as of the last time I'm measuring, although I think I have shrunk a little bit. I think about 5'1" and a half or 6'1" and a half at this point. Regardless, let's say that at one point, excuse me, I was measured to be 6'2". That is a fact at the time of that measurement. And what I mean by that is it didn't matter if I measured it, didn't matter if someone else measures it, doesn't matter if they measured in Fairfax, Virginia, or Exeter, England, or why am I forgetting the P city, Perth in Australia? It doesn't matter where it's measured. That is a fact. Now, for me, I would say that the Earth is a measured, being a sphere, that is a measured fact. At the very least, via satellite imaging. Satellite imaging has clearly shown that the Earth is a sphere, and by simple analysis of knowing what the camera was that took that picture, you can simply do just a pixel count. You can figure out what the pixel scale of the image is. You can then do a pixel count, and from that you can get a direct measurement of its radius and run from there. Now, I am completely ignoring the more than likely huge amount of direct measurements that have been taken by geologists, geophysicists, and so forth, because I am honestly ignorant of them. I know that there is a lot of indirect measurements. So, for example, one might ask, hey, Professor Rob, what about spherical excess? Why doesn't that count as making the Earth a fact? Well, because if I'm going to be Heinlein about it, there's a group of people in Stranger in a Strange Land that are literalists, in the sense that, say you have a barn in front of you and the barn is red. All that person will tell you is that the wall in front of them is red. They will make no comment on the other sides of the barn because they are not directly observing it. And so in that sort of vein, I would say that all that a spherical measurement does, or all that a spherical excess does, is it demonstrates that part of the Earth is in fact a sphere, or best described as a sphere. Then when you do it over here, that part of the Earth is a sphere. And if you do it multiple times, what you'll find is that almost without exception, within the errors of the observations, that they measure a sphere, and then it is inferred that it is in fact a sphere. Now, if I want to be pedantic about the whole thing, if I want to be Neil deGrasse Tyson-y about the whole thing, I would say that is not a fact. That is an inference based on multiple observations. Is it provisional? Yeah, because technically you could come up with an observation which refutes the idea that the Earth is a sphere. Maybe it's a sphere with a popsicle stick sticking out of it somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Who knows? Have we measured spherical excess in the Pacific Ocean? Who knows? I don't think we have. But there again, that I would call provisional. But at the very least, so there may be some kind of geophysical direct measurement of the Earth. I'm not entirely sure, since I'm not familiar with how seismic study of seismology, if that would be considered an indirect or a direct measurement of sphericity. I don't know. I suspect that it could be, but again, I defer to the experts in that field in order to do it. Now, again, But at the very basics, at the very, very least, I would say that the Earth is a globe is in fact a fact because we have observed it and measured it as such from space. So, fact equals demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt. Uh, Again, I would argue from a scientific point of view that is uh, that is insufficient. I would argue that that is, in fact, too vague, too subjective, because you you then have to ask the question: what is reasonable doubt? And reasonable doubt, I would say, is well, it's subjective. One person's reasonable doubt is not another person's reasonable doubt. And as an example of that, I would say OJ, the whole gloves acquit, you must acquit bullshit. One person's reasonable doubt is reasonable doubt. I don't think is a from a scientific point of view. I don't think is a proper definition. Relativity or matter distribution, that too, it could very well be. I think what you're talking about is in terms of the lambda CDM. No, not with the early universe. I don't think matter distribution would really, because at this point with JWST, what we're finding is these galaxies have coalesced far quicker than would be expected under the current lambda CDM, and that isn't about matter distribution. That's about matter density. Dark matter densities more specifically. Reciprocal Zenith angles represents a wedge arc and vertex angle. It is affected by gravity variation, but neglecting that you can derive the radius from that location. Again, at that location, at best, what you can state is through the measurement of reciprocal zenith angles, through the measurement of spherical excess, the best you can state, honestly, is that at that point, it's a sphere. At that location, it is a sphere. Again, that is pedantics. That is in what I'm going to start calling, that is to deGrasse Tyson something. Right? So, am I refuting that those are pieces of evidence that are excellent examples of how we demonstrate the Earth as a sphere? No, I'm not saying that they are not excellent examples. They are excellent examples, but I am saying that what I am saying is that they do not constitute they do not rise to the level of stating that the Earth is a sphere as a fact. It is all it does is it states that area of measurement that area of measurement is a sphere is a fact. But again, given the totality of evidence that we have, then one has concluded prior to the advent of space travel that the Earth is a sphere. Concave would be the opposite of excess, wouldn't it? It would be concave based on the evidence. No, in fact, it would not. It would actually be quite the opposite. If it were concave, then the angles, naively, I would say that the angles of the triangle would be less than 180. Maybe I have that way wrong. No, apparently I have that way wrong. Yeah, you're correct, Thurston. I don't know. Like I said, all over the place. Yeah. Wow. I just have a wrong-headed perception of that. Just visualizing that. In my head, I realize that the surface area of inside a sphere is the same as the surface area outside a sphere. But for whatever reason, my lizard brain is telling me, no, it has to be smaller. What the hell? Where the hell is that coming from? Yes, that would be hyperbolic geometry. Yes. A hyperbolic surface, the interior angles of a triangle are in fact less than 180. And the circumference of a circle is greater than 2 pi r. I could be getting that wrong. Like I said, it's been a fucking shitty couple of days. I was talking about the observations being a problem with general relativity specifically, which does not specify the matter distribution. Yeah. Yes. No, 7 actually, as I said, it's actually not. Apparently, it is. Spherical excess would I suppose, would it indicate concavity rather than concavity or convexity? I suppose it would, but I don't think it's observed that the Earth is convex. I don't know. Like I said, it's yeah. Naively, yeah. I know that I'm missing something fucking obvious, but I would say that naively, yes, a spherical excess simply indicates spherical geometry, and that could either be concave or convex. If concave Earth, the distance between the celestial bodies wouldn't match up with. I'm not suggesting it's concave in any way whatsoever. The concave Earth idea, from an astrophysical standpoint, has way more problems with it than the topographically flat, stationary Earth. The concave model of the universe makes absolutely no sense and is quite impossible within the astrophysical sense. The idea that the entirety of the universe, the volume of the entirety of the universe, is actually smaller than the volume or contained within the volume of the Earth is a ludicrous notion, is an absolute ludicrous notion. Maybe I am strawmanning what a convex Earth, their model is, but that is what it looks like to me. And they are suggesting that the volume of the universe is in fact the volume of the Earth, which I don't even know what to say to that. I honestly have no retort to that kind of claim. So yeah. Lucky if you're watching this, that is ultimately my answer, is that since we can directly observe or directly measure the convexity of the Earth, and we can basically measure it from space, then yes, it is in fact. And I am thinking that there have been a lot of geodetic surveys, and perhaps I am wrong. Perhaps they have mapped the entirety of the Earth directly, and that has shown the Earth is in fact an oblate sphere. Well, it's really not even an oblate spheroid. It's in a regular shape. We approximate it as an oblate spheroid because the actual geometric shape of the Earth is not regular, from my understanding. There is no geometric shape to it. There is no label for the geometric shape to it. It's lumpy. It's very lumpy, from my understanding. Not a straw man. They really think the whole universe is a ball in the middle of the Earth. Yeah. Like I said, I say that I might be straw manning it because I've only heard it explained to me very briefly by only a couple of people, and I certainly have not looked into any of the videos which claim that the Earth is in fact concave. Yes, Earth is lumpy. I believe that is a technical term. In terms of how the Earth has been mapped geographically or geodetically, PhD Tony is far more of an expert, and I will allow, and I'm sure he has done videos explaining that. And that so that I will state there. So yeah, there we go. No, Hollow Earth is different. Yes, Hollow Earth Hollow Earthers believe that Kong versus Godzilla is a documentary. That in fact and I know enough about seismology to say that is complete horseshit. That has been, and yes, I'm going to be salty and I'm going to be a little bit dismissive today, but yes, and I will call Hollow Earth horseshit because seismology has definitively ruled that out. If you have seismic waves will refract based on the density of the material it propagates through, and if there was a hollow Earth, then yes, there would certainly be evidence of that. Southern hemisphere has less land, I think, so the overall density is slightly less, and so the volume is slightly greater as the whole has to be balanced. It has to be in balance. Sure, but I know generally speaking that the Earth, well, the value that I have in my head is that the Earth's density as a whole, or on average, is 5.56 grams per cubic centimeter. At least that's the value that I think. It's somewhere in the 5.5 range. If you make a coordinate transformation, inversion in a sphere if you want, you can make a coordinate transformation inversion in a sphere if you want, but it doesn't change reality. Tell us how you feel authenticity is awesome. Well, yeah, I am going to. And this is not astronomy related. And I'm going to be talking about Christianity. So buckle your seatbelts or don't. I know. Yeah. Anyway, I won't really comment on. I won't go woo that way. Anyway, so I was teaching my intro to astronomy class. I thought it was a very good class. I expound on the pale blue dot and my thoughts on that. I went into what the ancients believed or what the ancients saw, and so forth and so on. I thought it was a great lecture. My students thought it was a great lecture. I have no clue, but I felt good about it afterward. I noticed something though. I noticed this book on the table, and yes, I stole it, which, considering it's about Christianity and being a good Christian, I recognize the hypocrisy in that. And I would like to say that I borrowed, but no. I stole it. I have no intention of taking it or bringing it back. But I suspect that's the point. So I had the professor before me, took a huge amount of time getting out of that place. In fact, it actually made me 5 minutes late because I didn't have my typical prep time. I very much try to get to class 15 minutes early so that I have plenty of time to set up my slides, to set up everything that I need to set up. And yeah, he was, oh my God. Anyway, hopefully this does not become a regular occurrence. I don't know what they teach. I will ask him the next time I see him. I picked this up and I asked him, "Hey, is this yours?" And he said, "No, but it looks interesting." So, given other tactics that I have seen, I would not be surprised if this was not a plant, that this was placed there on purpose to be stolen by someone like myself. Now, the title is A Grander Story, an invitation to Christian professors. And I've only read the introduction and chapter 1, the story. Now, it is vague as to what the central thesis of the book is. It keeps talking about that as a professor, I should somehow incorporate the idea that, God, grander story, we're all part of a grander story, and on basically how our discipline reflects the fact that we are part of a grander story. At least that's the impression I get right now. And I don't really want to get into that because of the fact that I may be strawmanning it. But I will fucking rant on what I did read. So, a few times in here, not once, not twice, not 5 times, but a few times, they refer to professors, Christian professors, as being in a privileged position, being in a privileged, or in, and the word that I really hate is strategic position. Because what is strategery? When you think of strategery, what do you think of? I think of war. I think of battle. Now, I think the best you can come up with is strategery really reflects just conflict of some sort. You can use strategery, and yes, I say that word, and I know I'm saying it wrong, but George W. Bush, my former president, said it, and so he's the president, and strategery. Anyway, sure, or in chess you use strategery, but again, it's a conflict. Woo, that is so misguided on so many fucking levels. I don't even know where to begin with it. The fact that it's an us versus them fucking mentality is, some bullshit. My theology, my love of God should not come into contact with anyone else. Actually, quite the opposite. It should, I would hope that it would inform my position, it would inform my behavior such that I try to uplift and enrich other people's lives, not try to combat them. Now, the story. Assuming from that just subtitle, that chapter title, it's going to tell me what this grander story is, you would think. No, it doesn't. What it does do is blow a whole bunch of smoke up my ass. Now, I will say it does actually have a point in it that I thought was good, that I thought was actually something that I really need to consider, and that is the author of this. Actually, 2 authors, and apparently they tag team chapters. They write each other's chapters, and I know this because they refer to themselves as I, and they always have to predicate that with which author the I is speaking of or is referring to. And so, howdy, Real Cygnus. And where was I going with this? I'm saying I'm a lot today. Better than so, I suppose. Betsy Ross would sit and so and so and so. The point is, because that was, she, described basically me in my early career, and to a certain extent my own at the present moment, is that when I was younger, coming up, I wasn't, my focus really wasn't on the astronomy from a career standpoint. My focus was on making myself famous, not famous exactly, really respected. My goal was to be highly respected, highly regarded. I wanted people to come to me and be like, Dr. Parks, expand on how, your theories on space and stuff. Teach me your wisdom, that sort of shit. And that was wrongheaded, and particularly it was detrimental to my mental health when I realized that the career path that I had set forth or put forth for my own glory was really not the best path for me. It was basically heavily devoted to research. It was heavily devoted to papers, grant writing, so forth and so on. And I've come to know enough about myself that I am not suited for that kind of rigor. I just do not have the fortitude for it. It doesn't bring me joy. Doesn't make me happy. So yeah, and the point that was being made was that my life was being, or this person's life, and I empathize that this person's life was about themselves rather than about anything larger. And yeah, so I fully on board with that. Fully on board with the idea that my life should be in the service of others, and that it isn't about me. It's about how I can make the world a better place. That's basically it. But just as a side, she mentions a story where she is disillusioned, as all grad students will, or in my experience, all grad students at some point get to this phase of what the fuck am I doing? Why am I here? How, and just, does this bring me joy? Is this something I really should be doing with my life? And apparently, in this little story, she sat with one of her fellow students, sat on a couch, and asked that other student, "What is the greatest thing that you hope to do with your life?" or something along that lines. And the student's response was, "Publish an academic paper." I was like, "Yep, been there." You get to that point where, as a grad student, you are so short-sighted that it's like, please let me be published. That is the greatest thing that would ever happen to me. She goes on to say that, that was misguided and all that kind of stuff, and they were, basically wrong in the face and like, no, that's not right. But it was, I actually chuckled when I read that. I was like, yep, I feel seen. This idea that you get to a point in grad school where you're like, yep, the greatest thing that could ever happen to me is not meeting the love of my life, not winning the lottery. Well, that's not an achievement, but not winning the love of my life, or not meeting the love of my life, not having children, none of that shit. No. It's being published. That's the greatest thing in the world. So yeah, that was pretty funny. My greatest thing is to become the world emperor. Clive? Yeah, okay, all right. See, for me, I was thinking that the world emperor would be my progeny, would be the James Robert Parks the 59th. But yeah, like I said in the last stream, probably not going to happen. Or at least it won't be directed to my line. I wish you all the best in becoming the world emperor. I don't know if I'm going to be supportive in you becoming the world emperor. But that is not to say that I would lead the revolution against you. But I will at least say that I wish you all the best. Yet, truly, it is a stepping stone to the domination of the galaxy, because I have on this channel stated that I believe that, humanity should move out into the universe, explore creation. And I am a pure-blooded globalist, and not in the shape of the earth way, in the fact that I believe that there should be one Earth government, one body governing the entire human species, and that it should have, as a government does, have the authority to instill laws upon a society for its own betterment. So yeah, I am a unapologetic globalist. I will be see, statements like that make me lean towards the whole leading a rebellion against Clive Wells's empire. You're saying the quiet part out loud, and I don't know if I would advise against doing that. But anyway, back to blowing smoke on my ass, and I was way more fucking pissed about this before, way more worked up about this than I was before. So you're getting kind of the mellower version of my reaction to this. But anyway, it continues to state in this fairly short chapter that one should give up basically one's ego. One should surrender oneself to God, and one should realize that they are a privileged part of God's grander story, and we presumably have a responsibility in the telling of that story. Problem that I have, and maybe I'm misreading this, but the problem that I have is the whole privileged part of that. Yes, I do believe that I am part of a grander story, and yes, I do believe that I have a responsibility to help write that story, such that it follows God's will, in such that it follows what I view as Christian values. That is what I believe. But the idea that I am in a privileged position seems to go very much against the whole ego, giving word of ego and surrendering oneself. And it goes on to state part of basically the main bulk of the chapter is how this person realized that this idea of academic ambition was wrongheaded, and that she gave herself over, and she is, talking to grad students and I guess mentoring them in Christ or whatever. And I'm like, I could give two wet shits about that. Half of this fucking book are testimonials. I fucking hate testimonials. What is a testimonial? Oh, I found God. Yay. I'm what? You're better now that you found God? Great. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a flying fuck up a running squirrel's ass. You know why? Because this isn't about you. It's about the doing. It's about the bringing of heaven onto this earth as best as we can. And by telling me that, wow, look, I was once a piece of shit, and now I am, holy shit. Fuck off. Fuck right off. I don't care. And actually, I don't want to hear it. I hear this shit from people who are anti-LGBT. I confronted a shitbag. Sorry, no, fuck it. I will deal with my behavior later. I dealt with this shitbag who was like, I used to be trans, but I found found God and blah blah blah. I don't give a fuck. Don't give a fuck. What I give a fuck about is you holding a sign that basically tell people who are trans that they are going to burn in hellfire. Fuck you. You don't know about what their relationship with God is. You don't know where they're going. You should have no say in where they're going. That is not the point. Actually, that is wholly against the fucking point. Jesus Christ on a crutch. Sorry, Sonny. You should give absolutely no fucks about someone else's salvation. That is not your job. That is not your responsibility. That is between them and their maker. That's it. That's it. Your job is to make this evil place not so fucking evil. That's it. So this whole yay me, I got saved. I could fucking care less. And I would prefer not to fucking hear it. Because you're not saved. Well, I don't know if you're saved. You don't know if you're saved. Fucking get off your ass and make the world a better place. So yeah. And this is the mellow version. So I'm hoping the book gets better. I don't think it will. Apparently it is it originated from folks that are part of CRU, CRU. I don't remember what that stands for, but it's Christians on Campus or something like that. And from my vaguest recollections, CRU is evangelical. And by evangelical, again, it isn't about the message of God. It's about control. It's about, hey, either you believe what I believe, or you are going to fucking burn. Yeah, because that's going to help. And it also talks about, this, it doubles, or it supports this idea that atheists have, or people who are not Christian have, that I'm a Christian because I'm afraid of burning in hellfire. No, that's not why I'm a Christian. That is so far not what I have. I think about death daily. I am a morbid motherfucker. That's what happens when you have suicidal thoughts. Is you think about what will happen once you kill yourself. I was also brought up Catholic, which means that That's a express train to hell. No lines, no waiting. You off yourself, you are destroying God's creation. There is no redemption for that. God will immediately fucking burn your ass. So yeah, I think about this a lot. However, I never think about it in the sense of, if I believe in God, then he will save me from that eternal damnation. Don't care. If that is what happens after I'm dead, gravy. That it would be fan-fucking-tastic. That isn't the point. That should never be the point. That should never really even be fucking discussed. Fucking disgust. That's what I'm feeling. I am feeling disgust at this whole fucking bullshit. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of hearing about Christians who are so worried about someone else's salvation. Worry about your own fucking salvation. And actually, no, don't even worry about your own salvation. Worry about the people who are homeless. Worry about the people who are fucking starving. Worry about the people who are persecuted. That's the point. That's the fucking point. Anyway. I believe in hell. I do believe in hell. I give the annihilation theory a certain amount of credence, but for me, hell is in existence without the presence of God. Now, right now, there is the presence of God. I feel him. I think other people feel him. And I know this is presumptuous, but I believe that God is with everyone. And I think hell would be when that's gone. Even if you don't acknowledge that his presence is there, his presence is there. And I think hell would be an existence where that presence was not there. So the shit that we live in now would become even shittier. It would become hell. Do I believe in hellfire? No, not so much. Do I believe in active torment for your sin? No, don't believe that either. I also am curious, and I've thought to myself, how many people are actually in hell? You have God who believes in redemption. That's again kind of the whole point. So the people in hell, if there are people in hell, then that would mean that those people did not redeem themselves. Basically, sin did not atone, did not want to be atoned, or what have you. How many people are there like that? I don't know. I don't think there are atheists in hell because they are atheists. I think they would be atheists because they did something shitty and didn't atone for it. So yeah, that's how I fucking believe. And that's my version of hell. Now, annihilation, people who are in hell, is hell simply non-existence? That would follow with that may be actually the only way that you could exist in a realm where God doesn't, is by being annihilated. I don't know. I haven't given too much thought in that, so maybe that's the case. But God is a doctor in peeping Tom. That is one way to look at it. Yes. Hell is running out of whiskey and hell is running out of that's not the right one. That one. Hell is running out of whiskey, going to the shops and seeing Sursec in the whiskey aisle ahead of you. Buying all of the whiskey. Yes. That is certainly true. That is certainly true. I do like Sursec, but I can't follow his content anymore because, yeah, anyway, won't go into that. I believe in a divine creator. We all have the divine within. I would agree with that. The idea of hell is just a typical scare tactic. The real scare tactic is that it still works on people. Yeah, I would agree with that as well, because again, one of the things that is taught, or was taught to me anyway, is to surrender oneself completely to God. And I believe in order to fully surrender yourself, you lose the ability or you lose the motivation to give a shit about what happens to you. So the idea that you are concerned about your own salvation is very much contrary to the idea of the surrendering of oneself to God. Cat butt. Cat butt. Ah, hello, Looney. All right, so I'm going to get off that because I know my audience and they probably don't want to fucking hear that. But I just wanted to get that out because, again, the stream and the shouting into the void is really a way for me to shout into the void, just get shit off my chest and try to motivate myself not to go back to bed, which is really what I want to do. I have things that I want to get done today, so going back to sleep would be, I don't know, counterproductive to that. So yeah. Now that you've all heard me yelling and screaming and all that sort of shit, ranting, raving, whichever. Let's get back to some astronomy. Actually, I really don't have a lot to say on that matter. But today, other than, again, the Japanese, have become the 5th member of the Moon Club. They have, yesterday they successfully landed Slim Shady, which is a lander whose primary goal, I believe, was to see whether or not they can make a precision landing, a landing that was within 100 meters of their target. And we will find out whether or not they succeeded when the rovers are deployed and they collect measurements. From my understanding, it was successfully landed, but the main problem is now that its primary power source, the sun, the solar collectors are not pointed the right way, and so right now it's running on battery power, which significantly limits its lifetime. I talked about Earth as a fact, or the shape of the Earth as a fact. Yeah, I stand by that. I stand by the fact that the Earth is the shape of the Earth is a fact. Now, that might seem contrary to the idea that I've also stated that I am open to other interpretations. And I am open to other interpretations. But those interpretations have to account for the fact that we directly observe the Earth as a sphere from space, and more probably from other geophysical observations. We certainly have enough indirect observations to make the case that it would be just earth-shattering, pun intended, to find out that the Earth is not a sphere. Ultimately, my point is the same point that I've made many, many times over, is that if you want to be able to convince me and anyone else, and Luna, do not eat the box, is that the replacement theory, howdy Judy, and thank you very much for that €10 super chat. A treat for your cats. Actually, well, I do have treats for and now Looney is attempting to get into the box. Now, to let you know, the box is roughly 6 inches by 3 inches. Luna is somewhat fluid. As we all know, cats are neither solids or liquids. They're somewhere in between. They're semi-fluid. But even with her physical characteristics, the chances of her succeedingly getting into this box are very, very small. But she is determined. She is determined to. Oh no! Now she found a twist tie and is attempting to kill it. Anyway. Schrodinger would appreciate that. Yes. So yeah, what was I saying? So where was I going? again, thank you, Judy. For those of you who, I should mention, as was evident, my channel is at the first stage of monetization. I have, and thank you, because that also reminds me, I do have memberships now at 3 different tiers, and I do have a channel member. Thank you, Bellywood, for becoming the first Mercurian on my channel. So I now have a member. I need to come up with, I also have member IDs, a little pictures. They are, of course, all astronomers, which go back in time. So the first picture, if you will become the most recent member, you will have a Carl Sagan right by your face, or right by your name. Carl Sagan's face right by your name. If you are if you manage to stay for years, if this whole thing goes for years, then you will have Aristotle's face right next to your name. So, yep, the Earth is still round. I checked. Rock on. Celestial navigation wouldn't work without the underlying geometry. I agree with that. Don't need to convince me that that these things, which again, to complete this thought, is any replacement theory or any if you were going to state that the Earth is a stationary topographical plane, then that model has to account for all of the evidence that we have that tells us that the Earth is a sphere. That is how science works, is that any new scientific idea, or if you have a scientific idea and you want it to become the best explanation for a certain phenomenon, such as the shape of the Earth, then that idea, that theory, or excuse me, that model has to account for all other previous observations that have come into being. And I reject the idea. Oh, and the idea of morning, Meraki. And it has to go further than basically saying the observations or the interpretation of the current observations is just wrong. For me, that is completely unsatisfying. You have to tell me why it's wrong. And if I am going to, if I am going to accept some other viewpoint other than what astronomy has taught me, what my own research has taught me, or has verified or backed up, or however you want to phrase it, you're going to have to show me how those observations are wrong using a cohesive physical underpinning. I know, Stephanie, you have said that you have basically made the assertion that I need to prove, or you had not made that assertion. My interpretation of what you have said in comments in the YouTube, on my YouTube channel, is that I first need to demonstrate that atmospheric refraction is a thing before I can even claim that refraction is the reason why we quote unquote see too far. Which I think I will do, actually, because that reminded me of the fact that astronomers deal with atmospheric refraction all the friggin' time. It's what causes stars to twinkle. And hey, for shits and giggles, let's see if I can pull something up. There is a type of I talked about interferometry. I talked about the interferometry that I have done, which is the idea of taking multiple telescopes in order to get an angular resolution finer than any of the one specific telescopes. Well, that's not the first type of, well, actually it was the first type of interferometry done, but there's another type of interferometry called speckle interferometry, which really really ties more into adaptive optics. It's not to get a better angular resolution than the telescope can provide. It's to get the resolution. It's actually to get to the resolution that a telescope can provide, because of atmospheric refraction. If you have a telescope larger than 10 centimeters, the angular resolution you gain is basically not important, because at this point, if your telescope is larger than 10 centimeters, your diffraction limit, the physical limitation of how fine of a detail that you can see based on how big your telescope is smaller than the atmospheric blurring due to refraction. Now, again, this is a video that I would probably, this would be a targeted edited video to talk more about this. But what atmospheric refraction does in this context is twinkling. The reason why stars twinkle, the reason why stars can shift in color, is because of the fact that the light ray is basically plinkoing through the atmosphere through various indices of refraction, meaning different density pockets, different temperature pockets, different materials such as smog. All of these contribute to the fact that the light ray coming from from a source outside of our atmosphere is not going to directly, line of sight, hit the telescope. It's going to quite literally plinko its way down because of atmospheric refraction. Now, let me see if I can bring this up, because this is actually pretty cool. Speckle interferometry. The reason why it's called speckle interferometry is what this attempts to do is when you do very high cadence, very short exposure images or imaging of the sky, you can essentially get a time-lapse video, or if you want to, you could basically call it a video, is that if you take like millisecond exposures, one right after another, then what you can see, hopefully, is the star shift around. You can literally see it shifting or moving in the images. So instead of just a blurred out image, which would be, so if you expose for say 10 seconds, then all the times that it flips around or moves around, you're capturing that on the CCD, and it superimposes itself. All of those motions superimpose themselves on and make the point light object balloon out or blur out into a larger thingy-do. That is a technical term. Let's see. Yeah, so ye old Wikipedia. Again, it's a great place for proof of concept or first time observation or first studies. Blue. All right. So this is Zeta Biotes or Zeta Booties, if you're into that sort of thing. And this is basically also a superimposition of speckles. So each one of these little dots, these little black areas, those are images of the star at that instant in time. And you can see that it's shifting all over the place. It's moving all over the place. And that is because of atmospheric refraction. It's mainly sticking to here. And so the way that speckle interferometry works is that you have a slew of images that are minute exposures. So you are assuming, or you can make the assumption, that this is essentially an instantaneous view of what your object looks like. This is a binary star. This is two stars that are going around each other. If you were to look at this through normal photometric means, then it could very well be that you would only see a single source, or that you would see what's known as a partially resolved binary, where you see kind of a dumbbell shape, but you can't really get both stars without contamination. One of the first ways to combat this, other than adaptive optics, which is a way of, which is something else entirely, it deforms the mirror. It's a whole subject in and upon itself. Here is, you take all these exposures, and then so you have essentially this binary pattern. You have this binary pattern which is constantly being shifted, because both stars are going to be affected by because the photons that are hitting you are capturing the information or containing the information of both binary stars. And so this binary star is going to move around. It's not going to change it's not going to change its shape. It's not going to change its separation. It's moving around. What you do is you track and stack. This is the first time that the technique of track and stack works, is that you register the images. You say, all right, here are the positions of the centers of these two stars. Again, that should not change in every image. Here is the position. You take this and you take the second. So this is the first picture. You have those two stars. You have the second picture. You have those same two stars separated by the same distance, but they are shifted somewhere on the chip. They are now no longer in the same position as image one. You then shift those stars in image two such that when you overlay it onto image one, they are in the exact same position. And you do that over all of them. So effectively, you are getting rid of the blur that occurs during the observations. You are also gaining you're gaining image, or you're gaining signal. Your signal to noise will improve as you do this, because the signal increases linearly, whereas the noise that you're adding from each particular image adds as a square root. So we refer to it as stamping down the noise, gaining signal and stamping down the noise. Interferometry is groovy. Yes, interferometry is groovy. I don't care. And groovy is a groovy word to say. I think everyone should say groovy. It's not like moist. I think groovy may be the anti-moist, honestly. Might go so far as to say that. I'm hoping that I can very quickly, or not so quickly, find here we go. Well, that's really small. This supposedly is, oops, that's not the right one. This is a motion. It's kind of there. What this is basically showing is you have a binary, not even a binary. I don't know what this is. What is this? Showing Epsilon Aquila. Okay. Nordic telescope. But you can see this stuff that is moving. You can see basically there's a black dot, and you see all these other little black dots, and you can see that they're moving. So the exposure here is not quite instantaneous. Each particular snapshot does still capture the thing moving around, but it's short enough that you can isolate these individual speckles, such that when you add all these together, or when you look at these as an ensemble, you can register them and you can stack one on top of another. But that's not the kind of video I was hoping to show. Reset. All right. Let's see here. And you do get here's a shot of what you would get at the back end. How about this? There is a problem with speckle interferometry. Speckle interferometry, oops, stop screen share, present, share screen. Ta-dam, ta-dam. Here's a video of this is the video. This is the autocorrelation. This is when you do the stacking, essentially. Here is another. Here again are images, speckle images of a binary system. Obviously, with these speckle images, you really can't see the binary very well. But you can, like I said, after track and stack and processing, you can get this. And so the main problem with speckle interferometry and why it's not really done so much, or at least not to my knowledge, is that you get this 180 ambiguity. You don't know whether or not the companion is on one side or the other. So all you can say is you have separation, and this is a problem when you're trying to actually map out orbits, because if you're trying to figure out what the orbit is of one around the other, or two around the barycenter, well, you need to know what the actual positions are. And if you have 180 discrepancy, you really don't know what the orbit is. I mean, you can get around it, but it puts in another hurdle to getting an accurate measure. So yeah, maybe I will at some point do a stream on that. Or so. Just phonetically, interferometry suggests measuring interference patterns. Not necessarily. Well, phonetically that might be suggested, but again, science typically has its own definition of things, and interferometry, from my interpretation of that word from astronomers, in the astronomer's lexicon, interferometry really has more to do with superposition than anything else, is combining things on top of each other. So with optical interferometry, you have two light beams, you add them together, or you place one on top of each other, and then you would get an interference pattern, or fringes. You would get fringes, and from that you can get visibilities and closure phases. Here, the interferometry is you take images, very short time exposure images, and you add them together, and basically you would get a superposition of the bright source and then a superposition of all the dark in the area. So yeah, that would be my off the cuff definition of what interferometry is from a scientific standpoint. I think there's an ointment you can get for the speckles, but we like the speckles. The speckles are groovy. Without the speckles, we can't do speckle interferometry, and then we can't. Well, they couldn't. Oh, wow, this was done in 2009. Wow, all right. Most of the speckle interferometry I've ever seen was done in like the 80s. We have adaptive optics now, but I guess if you have a telescope like we have here, adaptive optics is challenging to implement, if not kind of impossible. Active optics you could do. We could potentially do a tip tilt. We've tried to do a tip tilt, introduce a tip tilt where you basically have a mirror which shakes, which in the opposite orientation of the atmospheric refraction, but the system is inadequate based on our current methods of observing. Flat earthers really need to be pressed to explain exactly how the massive cover-up has worked for centuries. That's a separate issue, honestly. And when it comes to the flat earth debate, as it were, or the flat earth discussion, as it were, I look at those as almost two different subjects. Is if we want to, as scientists, entertain the idea that what we know the shape of the earth is wrong, then this is the way we do it. This is the way that science would have us do it. Now, on the flip side, and this is really what I'm more interested in, and I'm hoping that with Lucky I can have that kind of conversation, is, yeah, this would be a massive. So you would either have to have a massive cover-up or a massive misinterpretation of data, such that, which, for my money, you only have two routes, really. You only have two explanations. Is that either astronomy back from, the earliest days to now, these folks have simply been misinterpreting the data, unless, of course, that data supports the idea of a topographically flat stationary Earth. They've been misinterpreting that data, or they've been lying about it. It's an active deception, or both. And I would be very interested in knowing the motivations behind any sort of active deception, and I would like to know what is behind the massive misrepresentation, if that in fact is a thing. And so far, I have not been able to get that. And one of the reasons why I have a poor view of Flatzoid is that I have asked him this on a couple of occasions, and he flatly refuses to acknowledge, or he flatly refuses to entertain that question. Most recently I asked him that, and he said he could not divine the reasons for it. And my opinion to this, or what I have to say to this, and perhaps what I did say to him, in maybe not in so many words, is how can you have that position? You are suggesting a massive cover up or misunderstanding that goes beyond NASA, goes beyond the space age or what have you. Astronomy and geology have been stating that the Earth is a globe for centuries, if not millennia. So how do we explain this? How do we explain, and this research, for the vast majority of time, has not been government funded. So yeah, that would be the way that I would justify that. Let's see, what do we have here? Bendy water. Water is a fluid and needs a container to be contained. ChatGPT. Does it? What if you dump water? You have a small amount of water, and I don't trust ChatGPT. For the record, I don't trust ChatGPT for this sort of work. You have a large surface, a very large surface, a small amount of water. If you dump the water onto that surface such that it does not fall off the edges, what is containing it? Yes, you have a flat bottom, obviously, or it would fall to the floor. But what is dictating the shape of that? What is the container for that? That would be my question. If verticals are parallel, water would be flat on average. Verticals are observed to diverge, so water must not be flat. Or, and I believe this is I guess more scientifically accurate, or so you change your definition of flat. Flat means curved. From a geodetic standpoint, flat would be following the shape of the Earth. I believe there are multiple texts that state this. I could be wrong, but anyway. I missed the beginning. Are you having a talk with Lucky Haskins? We are currently in the process of setting that up. As far as I know, he is amenable to the idea. I am certainly amenable to the idea. We just need to figure out the time. And in terms of the topic, he and I are also on the same page. He doesn't want to talk about flat Earth proof. He just wants to talk about, from a theoretical standpoint, what is science? What can we believe? That sort of thing. Let's see. According to the laws of physics, it is not possible to have a vacuum adjacent to a pressurized area without a physical barrier. ChatGPT. Again, ChatGPT is suspect in its accuracy when it comes to physics, at the very least, and definitely astronomy. According to the laws of physics, it is not possible. The answer, which I'm sure you are aware of, Maddie, and thank you and welcome to the channel, and welcome to this to be in my comment section or my chat, and I really appreciate it. But I'm sure you have heard that the answer to that question, the container in this case, is gravity. That gravity is what is holding the atmosphere onto the Earth. and it's not doing a perfect job. The atmosphere, the Earth is leaky. The atmosphere of the Earth is slowly diminishing. And that is also something that I really haven't brought up before, but you have volcanoes popping off all over the place, introducing gas from underneath the Earth's surface. Where does that gas go? If you have truly a contained system, where does that gas go? I mean, yeah, a lot of it is sucked back into the Earth. What I'm thinking of is carbon dioxide gets sucked into a reservoir of water, but certainly that's not a complete equilibrium. Certainly that's not a one-to-one. The amount of gas that gets thrown out into the atmosphere gets absorbed by the atmosphere. So I would think that a physical container, a physical firmament over a long time period would cause the atmosphere to become thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. But that's an assertion. I don't know enough about the enough about the specifics of recycling, atmospheric recycling, than to make that absolute. ChatGPT is terrible at maths, physics, and science. I would go so far. I don't know about terrible. What I would say is don't trust it. Verify it with other sources if you can. Every photograph or image of the Earth from a sufficient distance. Yep. Pressure. Plants depend on carbon dioxide. Correct. Yes, that is true. Although not all of them. Again, not a biologist, but I do believe that there are certain plants, or maybe it's just fungi. Fungi are not plants. I don't know. Let's see. Flat is flat, curve is curve. Again, one needs to acknowledge that terms are different depending on in the context in which they're used. For example, and because I'm a classic D&D guy, it's a daemon, not a demon. But a computer scientist doesn't actually believe that their computer is infested with demonic spirits. But daemons are real. Daemons is a term that is used in computer science to talk about computer processes. The term flat does not mean perfectly horizontal in surveying work, in geodetic work. There are people, debunkers, better than me, more articulate, more of rapier wit. They have shown this time and again where textbooks have clearly stated that flat is in fact curved, that flat is defined as following along the Earth's surface. So whether you want to accept that or not, that's the position. That is what it is. Words have various definitions depending on their usage. Did you know that magnetic fields bend the surface of water? Not to talk about wind, inertia, and all the other effects. Thanks for addressing my comments. Of course, Maddie. I try to address everyone's as many comments as I possibly can. A raindrop does not require a container. Yeah, surface tension in this context would be considered a container. Hey, that's not what we observe. I did want to address this. No, look at how many people defend their religions as fact with no physical proof. It is human nature to accept what one is told from toddler age and up. You're getting dangerously close to equating science that I do to religion, which I am it's one of my triggers, shall we say. Because the difference is, and as you state, religion has no physical proof. One would argue. Others might say that that religions do have physical proof through the demonstration of miracles. I would not be one of those people. but there is that argument. Anyway, in this context, to what I do believe, uh, science is backed up by physical proof. And I think that the debunkers have readily, for the most part, I think the debunkers have readily demonstrated what that proof is. Um, da, 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 da. I hear that magnets do not work underwater. Yes, apparently pouring water on a magnet breaks it somehow. I think Toon educated me on that. Well, Toon showed me the person who educated on me, or brought me that education. I can't remember who it was who stated that. Richie, unfortunately, Lucky was right. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know what he's right about. Is this in response to Lucky pointing out the nonsense behind the definition of fact? In a way, yes. So at the very beginning of, well, at some point in the stream, I think it was early on, I define fact from a scientific point of view, and I'm open to being corrected on that. But just to reiterate, what I feel to be a fact is something that is demonstrably measured. That is, the fact that I am 6'2" can be measured as 6'2", and it is independent of who is doing the measuring, of where the measurement is happening. That is a scientific fact. So I would say, in response to Lucky's question, whether or not the shape of the Earth is a fact, I would say yes, based on satellite imaging. Now, again, geophysics may in fact have direct measurements of the Earth's surface through geodetic surveys or through other means, probably through the use of satellites, using the motion of the satellites to determine what the shape of the Earth is. I am not nearly as well versed in that as others in this community, specifically Tony. I miss Richie. No apologies needed. I figured that would be the case because, yeah, I did talk about that in the beginning. Religion, by definition, always includes a supernatural being as a causal agent. Yeah, I would naively go with that. Science does not worship any deities. No, science does not worship, and that's the triggering aspect of it. Is that for me, the main difference between science and religion, or science and faith, is worship. I do not worship science. And to say that I do is insulting, because I worship God. And to say that I worship science is to say that science is on par with God in any way whatsoever, and it is certainly not. So yeah, that is why I find that that when people relate science to religion, or call science a religion, that angers me, or irritates me. I have a significant problem with that analogy. Stephanie, this was in context to, I think it was on Toon's stream. Toon showed a person's video that basically stated that if you pour water onto a magnet, that magnet breaks, or that magnet is no longer functions, which is just weird. Just a very strange thing to say. Almost as strange as saying that Sirius is the only binary star in the universe, which again is demonstrably false. Don't let it get you angry. The anger will eat you up. Richie, I agree. Anger. I have plenty of evidence of anger, and you probably missed that I did get markedly angry during the stream earlier on, and yeah, so I vented it because I didn't want the anger to stay. Granted, I question the moral rightness of venting it to the internet by spewing that anger so that it could potentially be consumed by others. I mean, I did it in my my flat, but the only people or the only beings that encountered it were my cats, and it's just not satisfying. So I did it here. Use the anger; it gives you focus. I think that's true, or can be true. In my experience, my anger, when I attempt to use my anger, I am too caught up in what it was that's making me angry or who is making me angry, rather than attempting to combat in a constructive way what it is that was making me angry. So, for example, if someone says that science is a religion, I am too far caught up in who it was that said it and why it was that they said that to me, and how wrong they are saying it to me, rather than actually trying to use that as energy to provide a more nuanced and constructive argument as to why that isn't the case. So, did he really? It was Trump who claimed magnets don't work. Oh, yes, that's right. That's right. It was Trump who claimed that magnets do not work in water. I had forgotten about that. I had assumed it had to be somebody that Toon highlighted, but yes, he did say that. Honestly, Meraki, not to go into political things, but of the things that Trump has said, that's kind of minor, I suppose. That's kind of in the whole range of windmills cause cancer. Actually, I would say windmills cause cancer is a worse thing to say, because cancer is a serious matter, whereas magnets, not so much. Nuking hurricanes goes along the same lines as windmills causing cancer. Given to your anger, yes. I don't know. Again, you might be saying the quiet part out loud. I don't know if quoting Palpatine as a good thing is a good thing. His speech in New Hampshire, I don't listen to him. I don't listen to his speeches. The only things that I hear are about like news sources who feel the necessity to tell me about his speeches. Does saltwater act differently in terms of magnetism? I would say yes. Saltwater has different electrical properties, and magnetism is related to electricity. So yes, I would imagine that saltwater does in fact make it makes a difference in a magnetic field that propagates through it. But again, that's a naive kind of thought. Trump rally in Mason City, Iowa. Trump, all I know about magnets is this: give me a glass of water, let it drop on the magnets, and that's the end of the magnets. As I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, what I think he is trying to say is that when he says magnets, what he means is the electromagnets. And by dumping water onto it, you can short out an electromagnet. That is my interpretation of what he is saying. But like I said, I try to give everyone, even that dude who is not groovy, definitively not groovy, even that dude, the benefit of the doubt. So who knows? You cannot eyeball flatness. I mean, I suppose you could. I would say that the Earth is flat to first order. Hello, Looney. Because from the horizontal, the horizontal coordinate system, we assume a flat horizon. So to first order, yeah, I would say the Earth is flat, but in actuality, no. Obviously, I don't. Um, even if the Earth were flat, which it isn't, there would exist no decent evidence without precise long distance measurements. Yes, I think ultimately, if you were to, when it comes to, and I have asked, I believe other people have asked, when they say that the Earth is flat, and more specifically that they have measured it to be flat, what I have found is, can you give me the value? And better yet, can you give me the error bars in terms of it? Because we state that the Earth has a radius of 60 or 6,000, blah 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 blah. But if you were to look at it in terms of measurements of how that is measured through study or through papers and such, they're always going to give you an error bar. So that's not a precise number. No measurement is precise. It has infinite precision. Howdy, Al. So yeah, like I said, you can, I think, eyeball it, but if you actively want to know what the flatness of something is, you quite honestly have to measure it. Science has no creed. Does it have no creed? Wouldn't you not consider the scientific method a creed? That is something that we are. Are we dogmatic about it? I would argue maybe, yeah, we are to a certain extent. But I get what you're trying to say. I get the meaning behind what you're saying. But again, I'm all about deGrasse Tysoning things and being as pedantic as possible, I suppose. Isn't long distance photography a measurement of seeing too far? It is not, actually. I have a paper that I still need to read through thoroughly that addresses that very question, where, as has been stated many times, refraction. The reason why you can quote unquote see too far is because of atmospheric refraction. And the paper specifically deals with long distance photography. How is it that you can make these long distance observations when, in fact, the curvature of the Earth would seem to preclude it from a geometric standpoint? What I like about it is that it actually seems to indicate that you can calculate a range. What is, based on atmospheric refraction and based on the attenuation of light through the atmosphere, just how far would you expect to see on a globe when you are taking the atmosphere properly into account? So here we're not just taking refraction into account. We're actually taking two different properties of the atmosphere into account. Pavlovian dogma. Yeah, why would that be too far? Richie, how can you verify refraction over 500 miles? Well, you would verify it in the same way that verifying, one of the ways that things are verified in science is that we have, based on physical principles, a model of how something should behave. And the way that we verify that is by looking at that prediction. What that model says would be our furthest furthest distance that we can see, and then comparing it to the actual observation. And if it matches, then we would consider it verified. Is infrared affected by refraction? It is, but not to the same extent. I would contend that all light is affected by refraction to some degree or another. I cannot think of and again, I may be showing my ignorance, but I cannot think of a relationship, or I cannot think of a region where Snell's law is violated. Richie, attenuation. The attenuation of light will change over different sections of the view. Yes, yeah, precisely. That deals with the composition of the atmosphere effectively. I think when I deal with attenuation in astronomy, we refer to that as the opacity of an object. And so, uh, for example, molecular clouds, stellar nurseries, the opacity of those is very high in terms of optical wavelengths that we can see because of dust grains. Dust grains are very effective at absorbing and refracting, or scattering, that's the word, scattering optical wavelengths, whereas infrared has a better time of it. It's not perfect, but it's far better or far more transparent than visible light is. Opacity is something also to be considered when you're looking at galaxies, specifically AGN. So magnetic limpet mines are a thing, and they use them in the ocean all the time. Like I said, I've gave Trump the benefit of the doubt because I think he is inferring incorrectly, really, that the magnets being used in whatever example that he was saying are in fact electromagnets, and you can short them out using water. Yeah, it's still a dumb statement to make. Still a huge stupid statement to make. But does the Earth move under Foucault's pendulum? Yes, I would say it does. That the Foucault's pendulum is an isolated system outside of the rotating reference frame of the Earth. So yes, I would say they are. In order to see flat Earth, you need to first see the National Association of Space Actors for what they are. Okay, all right. My question to you then, Richie, is how do you explain astronomy that is done prior to 1959? Because and geology that is done prior to 1959. And NASA really has nothing to say about, NASA is not the primary driver for geology. It's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, so not so much geology. So how do you explain the science that it was done prior to 1959 that seriously indicates that the Earth is a sphere? Electromagnets can work underwater if you yeah, of course. Electromagnets can work underwater if you properly insulate them, which is why I think it's a stupid thing to say. Pouring water onto an electromagnet, yeah, you can build an electromagnet where it would short out, but if you're using it commercially where water would be prevalent, I would think the engineers would insulate it properly, but who knows? Foucault's pendulum is connected to the rotation of the Earth through its pivot point. That complicates matters some. The rotation varies with latitude. Yes, but from my understanding, that is because of the orientation of the swing due to the gravity vector. Not so much because of coordinate issue. I don't see that as a coordinate issue. I see that as a gravity vector issue. Richie is in order to see flat Earth, we need to see flat Earth. Okay. It's not really correct to say it is due to rotation under the pendulum. Okay. All right. Can you expand on that as much as YouTube chat will allow you? Except if done at the pole. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. All right. Yeah. Maybe I see what you're saying. Oh, yeah. Okay, so if it's on the equator, it's not rotating relative to the motion because it's only in one direction. Rotation would indicate multiple. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm on the same page. I'm on the right page now. Thank you. Do you say the scientific method creed like you say the Nicene Creed? No, I do not. I do not. Yeah, it comes into what you mean by precisely by creed. How dogmatic are you in terms of that creed? I mean, the question that I would turn around on you is, as a scientist, would you accept results that did not follow the scientific method? And if you don't, then in a sense, you are dogmatically holding to it. You're, in a sense, basically rejecting anything that does not follow the scientific method. So, in my opinion, or so then again, yeah, the polar orientation is lateral to some degree. Yeah. So if you reject something based solely on it not following a certain prescription, then yeah, I would call that a creed. Stephanie postulates that the magnetic fields affect the pendulum. The issue with that is the issue with that is you can make a pendulum out of wood, and you would still see the same idea. You would still see the phenomenon. You can make a Foucault pendulum where the bob and the wire are not magnetic or do not respond, or would effectively be insulators. You can make them out of insulators. They would not be affected by magnetism, and you would go from there. There is no longer one scientific method. There are a large collection of procedures that are rigorous and produce scientific results. That is precisely why I want to have this this discussion or this forum of scientists, which again, I have not been rigorous enough to actually put together for this Sunday. The thing is, though, what I would argue there is that there is one scientific method, but there is not one implementation. There is not one way to implement that scientific method. What I find with folks like QE is that they look at the scientific method and they truly do believe that it is dogmatic, in that the scientific method can only be implemented in one way, that any other implementation of the scientific method is invalid. My argument is no, that there is only one. There is one scientific method, but it is the way that is implemented can vary via discipline to produce rigorous and scientific results. Richie, I'm not sure how to explain astronomy prior to the 1950s. That confirms NASA. Then why do you question it? I guess is my question. Yeah. I understand not trusting the government. I understand that. I understand the motivation behind that. I don't trust the government to an extent. I certainly do not. But my trust in the government, particularly NASA, is a lot more than other folks, shall we say? And so, for example, give you an example of where I don't trust NASA. Now, this might seem weird, or this might seem small, or what have you, is that during the CWST controversy, naming controversy, the telescope, prior to its reintroduction as the Clive Wells Space Telescope, was named the James Webb Space Telescope, who is the NASA administrator who spearheaded or oversaw the Apollo missions, the Apollo program. Man has done noteworthy things, is very accomplished, and it is can be argued that without James Webb, we would not have had the success with the Apollo program that we did. However, he presided over NASA during the Lavender Scare, which, if you're not aware, is when the government, and this is documented, the government actively sought out members of the homosexual community as security risks, and many gay and presumably lesbian, although at the time you still had a great deal of misogyny, so I don't know how many women were actually employed by the government at that point, but you certainly had a lot of gay men who were fired because they were gay outright. They were fired from government positions because they were seen as a security risk because they were homosexual. James Webb oversaw NASA at that time, and there were documented cases of NASA employees being fired because they were in fact homosexual. There was an initial allegation that stated that he knew of it and that he was a somewhat active participant in looking through, finding these folks and outing them and firing them. Those accusations have been proven to be erroneous. The evidence that was initially attributed to Webb was actually due to someone else. Essentially, these were notes. These were staff briefings, and the person involved was not James Webb; it was somebody else. That being said, I do not believe I was on the side that it should not be named the James Webb, which is why I actively use the acronym JWST exclusively, or now, CWST, because he knew it existed. He knew that the procedure or the guideline was to fire homosexuals because they were homosexual, and he did nothing. And in that sense, you could get into guilty by acquiescence. Fact that should he be held responsible for things by simply not doing anything to stop them? Is somebody liable for murder if they have it in their powers to prevent the murderer from committing that act? My position is I'm not going to prosecute the man for doing it, but I don't think he should be honored. The naming of a space telescope, particularly one as prominent as JWST, everyone knows about Hubble. Everyone knows, that the Hubble Space Telescope is nearly a household name. And so JWST is going to become similar. And my contention is that someone who allowed that practice to continue and to actively harm people should not be celebrated in such a way, because there are so many others who could be celebrated with that, who do not have any sort of, who did not display similar behavior. Georg, howdy, Blue Marble Science. So yeah. When I come to power, you will build a giant space laser. Dude, you should not be telling people this. People will not react. I don't think people will react well to. Well, actually, no, I take that back. It depends on what you plan on using the giant space laser for. I am assuming you are planning on using the giant space laser to eradicate your detractors here on Earth. But who knows? You could be using it as a planetary defense system against incoming asteroids. Am I willing to offer apologetics for Donald Trump? Insofar as I think that it is disingenuous to attribute things to things that he said. Yes, I believe everything should be honestly treated. And as I said, I could be very wrong about the whole magnet thing, but that is my interpretation of what he had to say. And like I said, I tend to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Said tongue in cheek. Okay. Science is refutable. That is essentially its defining characteristic. Any method that produces refutable results is scientific. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think it comes down to, from a framework. We have chosen that the scientific method is the method that produces refutable results in science. But again, this is the kind of conversation that I would love to have on a forum, where we can have a back and forth that is not through voice and text, but actually is a back and forth conversation. I think that would be very, very productive in terms of this whole flat Earth debate kind of thing. Richie, okay. Every university library has hundreds of feet of shelf space devoted to astronomy and astrophysical journals. How do science deniers explain that? I have asked that question, and the best I've gotten actually is from Dan the Waterman. Dan has, when I asked him that question, he's like, I honestly, I don't, and this is basically the same as what Richie has just said, is that he has no explanation for it. And what Dan said, that's what I was thinking. He acknowledged that as a valid point, that if he was to basically continue to refute that the Earth was a sphere, he would have to come up with some explanation as to why astronomy states otherwise. And geology states otherwise. His explanation for why NASA is doing it is, as you would expect, that the government is bad. The government is doing nefarious things, and that flat Earth is basically a snow job, that it is being used. Again, I don't want to. My interpretation of what Dan says is that it's being used as basically a front to cover up even more nefarious shit. There is a celestial sphere. Can't observe that. Hello, room. Flat Earth Math. Howdy. It was in relation or reference to your position on JWST. Tiny Captain, how are you? Richie, I think politics is theater. I like what Trump says, but he won't deliver on it. They never deliver on it. Not sure if I really want to get into politics on this channel. I know I get into religion and at least Christianity on this channel, so it's not. So obviously, my channel is not exclusively astronomy related. I don't know if I want to dip my toes into politics. But yeah, I mean, you can make the argument to one extent or another that no politician is going to be able to deliver on the promises that they make. Flat Earth Math. To answer the question posed by your title, no, the shape of the Earth is not a fact, because we could be living in a simulation on a cube-shaped Earth. But why does that simulation show us that it's a sphere? Let's see. Oh, I didn't Al, I'm sorry. I didn't realize your mother-in-law or grandmother-in-law was having a rough time of it. I hope that I concur with Tiny Captain. I hope that she is better. All right. I know a lot of people just came into the chat, and I am very, very grateful for that. But I am very much in need of lunch, and I am also very much in need of coffee. So I think. Um, you do. Flat Earth Math does agree that the simulation is remarkably heliocentric. So yeah, so I see that a lot of people have come into the chat and are now watching, but unfortunately, I am closing out the stream now because I'm hungry and I am desperate need of the caffeine. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for all for watching, and those of you who came late, um, please feel free and please do watch it from the beginning once it's posted. Trigger warning, as it were. Somewhere in the 1 hour mark, I have a rather salty take on a book entitled A Grander Story, An Invitation to Christian Professors. So if you're not into that sort of thing, please skip ahead by, I think, 20, 30 minutes and continue watching. So ciao all. Thanks for reading my comments. Richie, of course. And again, thank you for coming on and offering your perspective. Very much appreciate it. Maddie, thanks geocentrism for the win. Okay. Anyway, so yes, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you Judy, very much for the super chat, the 10 euro super chat. Just to plug it, I am monetized. If you would like to show your support for the channel, please do so via super chats. But I also have memberships now at 3 different tiers. Thank you, Bellywood, for becoming my first member, first Mercurian member. I think I actually have the corrected outro uploaded into live stream, but I will be altering it again to actually have an acknowledgement of members. As for what's coming up, I was thinking that maybe I would post a lecture today, but that's not going to happen. But tomorrow, I believe at noon, although I definitely need to nail it in place, but tentatively speaking, I will be hosting Dr. Tapioca Weasel, who is the grandson of Van de Graaff. He is a recently minted PhD in physics. He is currently a postdoc somewhere. Actually, he's a postdoc. I know where. I'll let him let people know where he is, where he's at. Coffee and Science was originally, the idea behind it was to interview and have conversations with educators and scientists in the field to basically humanize us, to let people know that we are not some dastardly evil cabal which hopes to do dastardly and evil things. So hopefully, I'm very much looking forward to that. Afterwards, maybe an hour or so afterwards, I will be hosting a Yay sub celebration to celebrate the fact that I am now monetized, and it will be basically an open stream. People are free and encouraged to pop on live with me. I don't know how long I will go, but I anticipate I'll go for a few hours so that people can come in and out and we can talk about anything that you would like. Probably not politics, though. Probably not religion, though. Let's say we'll talk about anything other than politics and religion. How about that? Since it's a Yay celebration and we want to kind of stay positive and all that sort of thing. The last interview, he killed Coffee and Science. I can't remember who the last interviewee was, and I don't believe it was you, Dr. Wells. Don't believe it was you. I could be wrong. I don't know. It's been a while. With that being said, I am Professor Parks, PhD. I make content on astronomy, science, skepticism, and mental health. If you like that sort of content, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell for notifications, because I am a chaotic son of a bitch, and I do not post regularly. I am working on doing that. And yeah, I think that's it. So again, thank you. Please have, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Go Pack. Peace out. Clear skies. Oh,